Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode. And now for a man who thought a Catholic mass was a group bodybuilding exercise, a man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am excellent, Pocket Locker. Good to see you. How are you?
I am good, and we've got a fun one on the docket today. Let's just jump straight into it. We're going to be talking about these rich ass pastors. Oh, gang, it's going to be bad for your mental health. You about to feel broke as a joke up in here.
But I want you all to know that it all belongs to God. It's what I was told.
He never keeps a penny.
Never keeps a dime, as I like to say.
Yeah. Fire! Woo!
Hey, look at those strong people who managed to stand in.
Right?
Young man, get up here quick. Young man, get up here quick. Come on. Young man, get up here quick.
They're all just laying out. Oh, she convulsing. Look, faking. Right, but look. I always talk about like the recreational trauma of all of it. Like when you really, like when you don't really have these issues, and these people are basically laid out faking seizures. Like it's so weird.
Fire on you!
Yeah, that guy was ready to fall before he fell.
That's what I'm saying. There's got to be something ableist about all this.
My house is almost 25,000 square feet. Yeah. You can get lost in it. I had to get some speed in there so I can find my wife.
Hey, Christian.
Saw Polo G cash out on a $40,000 chain. There's this gospel that I like to call the gospel of the bling bling.
You think Jesus Christ would roll around in a Rolls Royce?
I think he would have.
Jesus was physically on the earth today.
I think he would have. No shame. No shame at all. Would Jesus have rolled around in a Rolls Royce? Come on now.
I think Jesus would have said like about things like a Rolls Royce, like how many poor people could you have given a home like a home they own for the cost of this car?
Right.
Hi, Carrie Ann. Hi, everyone in the chat. There's also, I think the one that's even better than that, the one that I still think about. How many people could you feed with that money? And when you think of the cost of a $400,000 Rolls Royce, you could feed them, some people, for their lifetime with that kind of money. And how much less comfortable would you really be if you didn't have the Rolls Royce, right?
None. I actually,
you wouldn't miss anything.
Part of me thinks, given the just patently observable wealth gaps that we see and how many people are really, really actually struggling, I think not having a much more strict tax code or something like some real serious redistribution of wealth is an actual failure of civilization. Especially in the case of pastors.
Aren't that much different, right? Just
because these organizations don't even pay taxes.
That's, to me, that's the shame of it. I've often said I wrestle with the idea of running, to be a senator or something like that. If I did, I would, or even became president, if that ever happened, I would definitely say, effective immediately, the pastors have to pay taxes. The church, I'm sympathetic because it's an organization that receives donations. So it's like Amnesty International. I donate to them, or I used to. They live off donations. That exists because of donations. The churches would be the same way. If the people are giving the money and I'm giving them a bit of a tax deduction for that, I don't think I need to tax the church unless it charges for parking, does a bake sale. If the church charges for something, then we should tax the church for that.
I
Because
think
the
we just got
church,
to tax them. What is
but it's there. We're taxing a donation. That doesn't seem right to me.
why don't we always tax donations? To me, like
No,
the reason I would not support that is because they're not. You mean like because you're treating it like it's just a club or something like that? Because to me, like they're not a
no,
charitable organization. They're not
they
a
are.
legit nonprofit.
Many of them are 501c3. So the church, let's take that giant church that is maybe the reason Jay and I were joking before we started that. He asked me, I told him my Wi-Fi was slow. He asked, is there a church nearby? I said, yes. And I joked that maybe they're fact checking their priester as they have their sermon there. So my Wi-Fi is slow. But that church, if I had to put a number on what that church cost, it was about $42 million. Okay. So who's paying for that? The chances are the church members are the ones making the payments, right? Well, those
Right.
payments are going to be made for years, decades to cover the cost. I mean, I live in a fairly ritzy neighborhood, I guess, but it's still going to take decades to pay that money down. Well, people are donating their funds. The church is spending money on that. One could argue. Then my neighbor has a church that's in a set of like GE Capital mobile home units, right? So he's 2 doors down from me. That's his church. And then there's this other giant, I guess they're a Catholic church that's across the street from him, like kitty corner to him.
Yeah, what I meant is that they don't exist to primarily do nonprofit work. Like I actually think it's a
idea that they should.
They are often chartered that way, or they have their 501c3 status, but I don't think they should. Like I don't think like it's just to me they don't actually meet the qualifications because it's not their central thing. But yeah, it's crazy. Let's get back to the tape so we don't get too sidetracked. But yeah, for sure.
A rapper is cashing out on this $115,000 chain.
It costed me about like $115,000.
Just as the rappers are cashing out on their iced out diamond chain, so are the
Yeah.
preachers, where if you step into their world of bling, you are met with the finest leather seats of their Rolls Royces, their deposits of elegant multi-million-dollar jets, them gifting status Birkin bags to the members of their church, and of course their Gucci Italian shoes.
And how do you think she earned that purse? I don't think he's randomly blessing women with purses. I think there's probably something going on there.
Okay, so there's only so much I can say. Maybe next year, after I switch jobs, I'll tell you everything. But there's stuff I can't say right now. I went to a church with my sister in Texas, and she told me on a typical Sunday there are 26,000 people here. Now, as I am, my atheist me is sitting there, my eyes get wide, like 26,000. I'm using my phone, so I don't have my calculator. But let's do some math, because math is my job. I clicked on calendar. So 26,000 people, we can be sure that all 26,000 people don't tithe. There are probably children involved in there. I'm gonna lowball this. Okay. Let's just say weekly, out of those 26,000 people, we're gonna take 50% as people who can't tithe because they're a teenager with no job, they're a broke parent, whatever reason. Okay, we're gonna take 50%. So we're gonna keep 13,000 tithing members. But instead of a real tithe where they have to get 10% of their income, I'm going to lowball that number too, because I bet most of them can't or don't. So let's just say the average donation across 13,000 people is $30. So 30 times 13,000. Can my computer please respond? I should just do this stuff in my head. Times 30. That's 390,000, okay, per week. Now, if you saw this mega church, it clearly costs a lot of money to operate it. Okay. You have staff that do get paid. You have to make that payment on the mortgage and all that stuff. But there's 4.2 weeks in a month. So let's take our 390,000 times 4.2. That's $1.638 million a year. I mean, per month. Okay. It's not a lot of money. Now let's multiply that by 12. That's almost $20 million a year. But we can be sure the average amount isn't $30 per week. Let's pick a more realistic number. Let's say, because you'll have people going to this fancy church, it's prestigious to go there. You'll have people who are making 250, 270,000 and up going to this church. So let's just make the average $75. I wanted to say 100, but let's just say 75. So we take the same 13,000 people times 75. That's $975,000. Let's just call it per Sunday. That's almost $1 million per Sunday. So we know we're steaming towards about $51 million a year if I finish the math, right? So if that is the case, the operating cost for this church is nowhere near $975,000 a week. I'll give them $100,000. They don't need $100,000. I'll give it to them. Right? 100,000 people. The minister's famous, millionaire, nice speaking voice, author, into so many things. His fingers are in all the pies, let's say. And I don't think he's shady or anything like that, but this is just a lot of money. So I'll take my 975 times 4.2, in case you wondered, that's 4 million.
You don't think they're shady?
I don't think this guy is shady. I can't talk about all of them.
Sure.
Look, it's from Jesus's standpoint, they're all, this is by my interpretation of the Bible, all these people are trash.
That's what I'm saying.
From his standpoint. Okay. He's like, how can you say you love me and like you're not doing all these things for your fellow man when you got people showing up at your doorstep on Sunday and their electric bill isn't paid, their kids aren't fed, and so on and so on and so on. And yet you live in a mansion? Screw you, buddy. You're not getting into heaven. You know what? I'm going to make my one black friend here boss in hell. I'm going to pull some strings. So it would be something on the order of that. That's $4.1 million a week, basically. Okay. I'm sorry, per month. And then times 12, right? Times 12.
Yeah, they're making a lot of money.
49.1 million. Now I'm assuming $75. I would bet you the average is more like, because a lot of people don't make that much money. I would assume the average is probably more like 92 to 100.
I think it just depends on the church and how strong their tithing ministry is. In other words, how much they guilt trip people into paying their money. But to me, I think the entire thing is a grift. And so I just think the whole thing's immoral because there's no there. There's no services. They're not offering goods or services. Even this is why I wouldn't consider them nonprofits, because even their charitable work is less. It's obviously less than their tax burden. They don't pay taxes. So literally you don't have that basic, like, foundational contribution to society. And then when you look at their actual charitable works, I bet you for comparable sized organizations, they're mostly behind. Like if you compared the churches and you could just put them in big aggregates for each, as big of as high up the denomination chain as you can go. So you have a large enough sample size to get the same economic activity, but I bet you they're way less than corporations. Like if we compared the charitable donations of
that's interesting. Okay.
Like the Southern Baptist Convention to say Prudential or Geico or, just some really big Walmart, something like that, I bet you they're actually way behind. Way behind. Hey,
Walmart will let you park your RV there overnight if you don't have cash. I don't know that churches would do that. That's actually an excellent thing for them to say. Yeah, you can do that here too.
Oh, that's a whole nother thing. Like when they deny people access to the church for shelter when they're like the largest buildings.
Oh yeah,
in the
Osteen.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do that. They don't really want people. It's just a scam, and that's the thing. They don't offer anything. Like it'd be. I don't think it'd be right, but it'd be at least different. You know, when you talk about a CEO, they do at least represent companies that are generating that income off people wanting their goods or services. Now, I think the financial arrangement is corrupt and messed up. You know, but it's a totally different case. All right, let's roll some tape so we get through this.
This is not talking of the fake miracles, of course.
Hey, Liz Allen.
If you've never seen a pastor resurrect a man, well, today is your lucky day.
Man of
his tongue is moving and everything. You can see it. You can see it.
Well, just because you're dead doesn't mean you don't feel a little lively.
That being said, let's first begin this video with this.
My first house cost $14,700. I'm giving you a chance to write your check up. $14,700. My second house cost $81,900, and this watch costs more than that.
Pastors flexing. Before we get into these pastors flexing, I received many comments asking me where I get my music from. I use
I would love if I could get a house for $14K. Right? Although I did see a house for $59K on 6.49 acres, if I remember right, for under 70.
Use my referral link.
You might not want that. You gotta send a bunch of inspectors through
there. It's a teardown. It's a teardown.
30 days. You got 30 days.
But the land,
for free, right? They have over 40,000 tracks and 90,000 sound effects, of course. And there won't be, you know, any lawyers running after you to sue the out of you because all the rights to the music are all included. With that being said, Sing, my editor, treat us with some music. What you're seeing on the screen is a private jet. It's sleek, right? It's not a celebrity's, nor is it the president. This is the private jet of a pastor. The private jet of a megachurch pastor that goes by the name of Kenneth Copeland.
How are you, sir? We'd just like to ask you about why you don't want to fly commercial. Why have you said that you won't fly commercial? You said that it's like getting into a tube with a bunch of demons.
Getting into his fucking waiting Cadillac SUV with his body
staff.
Man.
With staff,
yeah.
Yes.
Them preachers spending all that
That's
money.
why it's a nonprofit.
Fat cats riding around. No, we're not. We in business.
Crazy.
Listen,
we in business. He just said
flying itch.
Also, you'll notice he does this. The Dufresne Ministries that work with him does this. Like they
you mean
try
Duplantis?
No, it's Dufresne. Dufresne.
Okay.
They set their backdrops in their churches to look like homey, very opulent, but still like domesticated, right? Like this doesn't look like stage stuff, right? This is a fake living room, right? It's just so weird.
Stock photo living
single
room.
engine, open cockpit airplane.
You said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
When I begin to think in the world,
gang, he was talking to somebody like that in real life. Like this is not a wrestling promo. This is actually how he talked to somebody.
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
Don't you ever say I did.
We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
When I begin to
I think a wrestler should actually just start stealing Kenneth Copeland material.
His lines.
And just use it.
I mean, he was almost Randy Macho Man Savage there. We wrestle not with demons, Mean Gene. We wrestle with principalities, powers. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
By a pastor might need a
Exactly.
private jet, I couldn't even begin to think of an answer. Is this jet really to go and preach the word of God like Kenneth Copeland says? Or is this jet truly another manifestation of his extravagant purchases? And just like this jet, Kenneth Copeland stands as one of the wealthiest pastors in the US. He boasts a valuable net worth of $760 million. His wife also preaches. And while many
Pause
of
it.
the
Pause it.
congregation may reside in average.
How much of that money did God say, nah, Kenneth, my good and faithful servant, I am so proud of you. Don't give me the collection plate this week. Don't wire it up here to heaven. You keep that for yourself. Keep it for yourself. What was the conversation like?
His whole ministry just has to be a cult, and I just think he can get away with any sort of financial structure he wants, and he probably has close friends or family members in almost every meaningful position of his ministry, and so by the time you get to anybody that can even get a whiff of some influence in that ministry, he's insulated by about 3-4 layers. So it wouldn't surprise me, but nobody would even know. Like, there's no questions would even be asked. Like, it would, he just, I don't know. That's another thing, right? That these churches, they have no real accountability to what they do with their money, how they're structured, how their organizations are run, how their employees are treated. I mean, it's a surefire way to have a hard cap on your career, right? If you go into ministry in the wrong church or the wrong organization, and they don't like you, like, who do you complain to?
So let me give you an example.
Committee.
This isn't everybody, right? It's not every church. It's not every minister. I went to see one of my uncle's sermons. I love the guy. He's an amazing guy. And I told him, like, I'm in town. I want to come see you. Okay, come on over to the service. And so I'm sitting there. I go through the whole service with him, and people are clearly having a wonderful time. Small church. I think maybe 45 people in attendance that day. And they passed a collection plate around, and I put $40 in. Right? This isn't my thing. I figure I'd buy my aunt and uncle lunch, or maybe the staff lunch with that, because there's only like 3 people working. So the lady who was passing the basket comes up to me. She goes, "Son, you need some change?" They are not the people we're looking for in this video. They are not. I said, "No, ma'am, you can keep the whole $40. All right. So a Boeing business jet, which is a smaller it's a good sized private jet, according to Liberty Jet Management, is between $2.5 and a little over $4 million for flying 400 hours per year. That's not the cost of the jet. That's using the jet.
I was going to say, that's just hiring the jet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just using the jet. So I don't know. I often can't say too much. So we had some high profile people that we needed to fly basically across the United States. Okay. I think there were 9 of them on board. There was 3 VIPs and their staff. So I think a total of 9 people flew on the plane. It was $75,000.
Wow. Yeah. I don't even know. I cannot understand the limited situations in which that's actually practical. It doesn't, that's the stratosphere of need. I don't get. Like, I understand that there's math to it. Like, I understand there's logistics to it. Like, it's often easier to take a helicopter. It's faster to take a helicopter across New York City than it is to drive by an order of magnitude. And there's, I know that the commercial flying is very slow, and business people need to get from point A to point B faster. But it's crazy.
let me give you a different comparison. So I was working in Georgia, not the state Georgia, in the Republic of Georgia, and we had to fly one of our VIPs from California. I'm pretty sure it was California to Tbilisi, Georgia. Okay, $29,000. Now you're literally going pretty much halfway around the world. It seems at that point, but $29,000 for a ticket. Now this was bought the day before this VIP had to get on the plane, and not a month before.
Right.
But $29K. So granted, she's going a lot further than the people we flew. You know, on the previous example, but in this one person, right? But you know, it's expensive to do. And honestly, if they could have had her there 6 days later, that ticket would have cost less than half of that.
Right.
But this is the type of person you kiss their butt because they have so much, you know, so much power. So you want to make them feel, I guess you want to make them feel like they do. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I guess if you got the money, then you could get that treatment.
They have the money. They have so much money. Yeah, they have so much money.
It's insane.
Apartments or live in modest condos. Kenneth and his wife live in this enormous parcel of land right inside their $7 million mansion home, alongside its own tennis court, its multiple garages, and even their very own boat docks. And of course, right, those are all accompanied by their own jumbo jet parked beside their own exclusive airstrip. How did a pastor amass this amount of wealth, right? Where does all this wealth come from? When Kenneth would explain why he needed this level of extravagant purchases, he would respond,
"Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons."
And right in that clip was Kenneth with his preacher friend, Jesse Duplantis, as they defended their luxury purchases of houses, mansions, and cars. Is this something that's moral? His preacher friend, Jesse Duplantis, is also another televangelist, and even his wealth is beyond our measures.
One of my chandeliers costs more than most people's house. I got 22 chandeliers in the house.
He lives in a ginormous mansion, zooms around in fancy cars, and he owns 3 private jets. And just like, you know, Creflo Dollar, the preacher, which we'll talk about in just a little bit.
And by the way, the name Creflo Dollar makes him sound shady from the get-go. And he wanted to believe on God for a $60 million plane. No, honestly, let me just quote a little Bible for people here, okay? Because Jesus did have some thoughts on shit like this. If you go to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 19, and we skip on down to where are we at here? I think it's 19. Okay, it's a little before that. I'll start at verse 14. Jesus is speaking here, but Jesus said, "Suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." So don't stop the kids from coming up to me. He goes on to say, and he laid his hands on them and departed from thence. And behold, one came and said unto him, "Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life?" And Jesus said to him, "Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments." He said unto him, "Which?" Jesus said, "Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt commit no adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy mother and thy father, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." The young man said unto him, "All of these things I have kept from my youth up. What lack I yet?" Jesus said unto him, "If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell what thou hast and give it to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me." I think confidently, if we ask any of these mega church pastors to do this, we would hear their response from another churchman, Bishop Bullwinkle, who's famous for saying, "Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no."
Yeah,
that's a guess, but I'm pretty sure.
And ironically, that is the straight-faced advice they'll give to their congregants who are going through trouble.
By all means.
Yeah.
The plate is coming by. The church is trying to do these great things under the name of God. We actually have all the money we need, and it's in your pockets.
Yeah.
Church gold. That's what that is.
That's the exact message. Okay.
To do what I've been called to do. The airlines, they don't fly my schedule.
Jesse's collection.
The airlines don't fly my schedule. There it is.
He's in Atlanta. There's Delta there. They go anywhere, anytime, pretty much.
Wife, as they gracefully exit their 2019 Chrysler, entering into their Falcon 7X jet that's valued at, guess what, $54 million.
I really believe that if Jesus was physically on the earth today, he wouldn't be riding a donkey.
Once again, is this something that
I also believe Jesus would not be riding a donkey? I don't think he'd be riding a donkey either, but he might be in someone's Toyota Tercel.
And those are just those are all photographs of the
planes.
Because some of these guys have a bunch of them, yeah.
And let's be honest, hold on. I get criticized because I like classic cars, and I said if I had like endless money and I wasn't an underfunded philanthropist, I'd have like 35 cars. And someone said, but you can only drive one at a time. That person is absolutely right. And let's compare it to, I guess we can keep it in the realm of cars and compare it to these planes. How different is my experience from driving my old truck, which is 57 Chevy truck, to driving my Prius? My Prius is more comfortable. It drives better. It's not faster. But there's benefits to being in the Prius that my truck can't offer. If I had a Lamborghini Gallardo, orange, so you know, hardtop, not a convertible, it basically does the same thing that the others do, only it's not as useful as my truck, if we're honest, right? So you have to consider, if he's got a $54 million plane and a $30 million plane, what more does the other plane give him? Either plane, like they're basically performing the same function. If I had a Maserati, Gran Turismo, it's performing the same function.
I think they just keep upgrading it. A lot of it, I hate to say it, at that level is a dick measuring contest. Because amongst famous people or rich people, there's sort of a, well, my boat's bigger than yours, my plane's faster than yours.
I guess.
No, this is a real thing. Donald Trump and Vince McMahon have a whole rivalry over this because, you know, Vince McMahon is like a big fucking deal, but, you know, Donald Trump always claimed to have a bigger jet, and there's stories of them going back and forth on the runway. So, it's like it's a status symbol. It is comparable to wanting to collect cars, and I don't mind people being collectors of things, and I don't care if people have money. It's just the hypocrisy of the mega rich pastor that I think they're in a position where we're not comfortable with them having this kind of wealth. Honestly, I just think their whole organizations are, like, again, I think they're scams. I think they're con artists. So it's just a sort of, I think it bothers us on that level. But like, I know, for instance, that like Jay Leno collects cars. Like Jay Leno has like a car museum or whatever of cars that he owns. And it's just like, whatever, he was a really famous late night host. I probably think at some level all of it is like bullshit capitalism, and there's probably a lot of problems with it, but it's not a lot of us are losing sleep over Jay Leno collecting cars or John Cena collecting cars, because we understand that comes with, celebrity. And that's really what is in a sense happening with these pastors. It just doesn't sit well with us because they're pastors.
Well, let me give you an example from Acts, the book of Acts. The problem here what I see, like the Matthew verses that I read, you can spin that. If you're one of these mega church preachers, you can say, yeah, but he said if he would be perfect. Jesus said if the guy would be perfect, he would sell all he have, give it to the poor, and come and follow him. I have millions of dollars. I still follow Jesus. I'm just not a perfect person.
Yeah.
But they would let somebody starve to death in front of them, some of them. I'm not giving them anything. If you don't work, you don't eat. The Bible says that, but the Bible says a lot of things. The Bible gives you prices for slaves. Are you into that? You know, the Bible tells a guy, go kill your son as a sacrifice. You into that?
Hey, non-believer, definitely Liz Allen, Jay Leno, and John Cena pay more in taxes. That's a big part of this for me too. Is the tax freeness of all of it.
Yeah, I would say nobody. Now,
but yeah,
if I'm in the Senate, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I agree that it's unbiblical. It totally contradicts the message we get in the Bible.
If I'm on the Senate floor and I've taken my time, I wasted my time writing a bill that revokes that revokes the parsonage privilege, right? Where ministers may not have to pay or don't have to pay taxes on where they live, something like that, right? And I say, okay, everybody, if you work in the United States, there's a minimum tax you have to pay that's a percentage of your income. Everybody, I don't care how poor you are, I don't care how rich you are, there's a floor. You can't go beneath the floor. It is regardless of occupation.
Right.
Now, these ministers in mass, right, would stand up and say, to me, they would quote Bishop Bullwinkle, hell no to the no. They would be saying that because it messes with their money. Now, I could then go right to Romans 13 and show them where the Bible is saying you should also pay taxes. It won't matter. It won't matter because so much of what we see in the conduct of these people is hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's not, it's they're the bad guy in the Bible. They're the guy Jesus is telling the parable about. It doesn't matter. We see this in politics.
They're the reason he's flipping over tables.
They convinced you the bad guys are the good guys.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know? And
all right, let's roll some tape.
Well, hold on. Let me give you this in Acts chapter 4, 32 to 35. Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and one soul. And no one said that any of the things that belonged to him was his own.
Mm-hmm.
Let me throw a little preacher
Socialism.
into it. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
But they had everything in common. Uh-oh. And with great power, the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. And great grace was upon them all. And there was not a needy person among them, for as many were the owners of lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of that which was sold and laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as any had need.
Yeah, that's why evangelical opposition to socialism and communism is hypocritical.
It's BS. I didn't write this, folks. You can check it out yourself. You can get your big floppy Bible like this one and read it in there. You can read it on the internet. You can read it in my 1868 Bible that's in my bedroom. Doesn't matter. You can read this all over the place in the Bible. In pretty much any printed complete Bible. There's something to this effect said in Acts chapter 4. And yet there are people who will stand up. This is one of the reasons America is not a Christian nation. There are people who will stand up and say, that's not in there, but it is. If I said this to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she would have a freaking stroke. If I showed it to her in her own Bible, she'd be like, there's no way. Because why? They're the party of personal responsibility. This isn't saying don't be responsible. This is saying be so responsible and so faithful that you can let your prosperity looks out for others that you don't even know, that you're not related to. And if you have a need, notice it says in verse 35, and laid it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to each as they had need. Mm-hmm. So the person who needed their kid needed the surgery, they got the money. The person who needed a goat for milk, they got the money, and so on and so on and so on. I've heard, and I don't know what the name of the church is or even if it's true, that one church was having an issue with people tithing. So they took their money out of the bank and they had all this cash. And they said, okay, everybody, we're having an issue with tithing. So come up here and take what you need. Because there's people who think, I guess, they can't make it. Come here and take what you need from the money we have here. This is all the money we have. And people did exactly that. They went up there and they took what they needed. And what that church saw over time is the replenishment of those funds and an increase in tithing.
Yeah,
so that's bold.
Citation needed.
Citation needed. That's bold.
But, yeah, I don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Well, I look.
It's an urban legend.
being a fan of the human condition in psychology, so I think something like that could work beautifully in the favor, just like any of these mega church pastors.
Yeah, but that's why I say citation needed, because it's the initial thing. Yeah, it'd be great. Everybody, yeah, would work wonderfully, except for that initial act of churches don't give up that money. A church is like a landlord, and your tithe is your security deposit. Nobody has ever seen that money back.
I've got my security deposit back every time.
But it's serious. They're a black hole for money. All right, let's get through some of this tape.
Is this something that's morally right? While at a book signing event, an Inside Edition interviewer would question Jesse about his lavish belongings. But in a blink of an eye, this interviewer would be escorted out by Jesse's security team.
Why do you need a $54 million private jet?
We're not doing any kind of interviews right now. I'm in the book.
I just like to know why you need a keep your hands off me. Why are you people touching me like this?
Because you need to
let go of me.
Add some ice into this vanilla cake, right?
That's crazy. It's like an assault.
Jesus is totally on board.
I can hear it hollering. And
these guys are just TV. I don't want.
I said, "What'd you do with her?" He said, "I made her outside edition."
If you were to begin to think of why a pastor might need jets, big houses, and luxury cars, right? What could the reasons be? Is it greed? Could greed be the reason why Mr. Jesse Duplantis bragged about his 22 chandeliers?
My chandeliers cost more than most people's house. I got 22 chandeliers in the house.
What are these preachers' true intentions?
Now, I'll excuse the expense of the chandelier because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. And chandeliers are for light.
Does it not appear that they love money more than they love God? Because when you hear a pastor, someone that's supposed to be a man of God, saying things like this.
I was on television. He said, "I heard you was a millionaire." I said, "That's not right. That's not true." He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it's not. Multi. Now add that to it and you'll be all right." Oh, he couldn't handle that. He liked to have had a fit. And I said, "You mess with me, I'll buy this station and I'll fire you." Yeah. Oh, he didn't like that, did he?
Oh my goodness.
That was a little fleshy, but it felt good.
Does this not make you question the true motives of some of these pastors? What about their congregation? What about these pastors' church members? Are they living this lavish? The woman who rode the bus. Let's take a look at World Changers Church, the towering temple sitting in the city of Bronx, owned by the affluent pastor Creflo Dollar. On Sunday mornings, Creflo could choose any of his cars to arrive at the church. It could be his sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom, his Hummer. And because the lackluster airlines don't fly Creflo's exclusive VIP schedule, he could even choose to cruise on his private jet.
In which way is this jet important for your ministry?
Well, in order for me to do what I've been called to do, the airlines, they don't fly my schedule.
As Creflo Dollar sits comfortably on his plush leather Rolls-Royce seats on his way to his church, there's Mary, a woman who worships at his church. She's walking towards a bus stop to catch the bus. And
that's
funny
so
enough,
crazy.
Mary sees no issue with this, right? In fact, she wholeheartedly supports Creflo's purchases.
Most definitely, most definitely. We support our pastor. That's what we're here for.
I don't have a problem with it. I think the kingdom of heaven should be rich.
Has Mary fallen for the lies of the prosperity?
They're crazy.
Wait, pause. Okay. I used to ride the bus to get around. So I'm no different than Mary. If I had to ride the bus now to get around, I would. I'm not so proud that I need to be in a car the whole time. The woman who says she thinks the kingdom of heaven should be rich. Okay, let's think about that. Because your treasure should be in heaven, right? That's what the Bible says, right? So the gospel that these people, this happens a lot. The gospel that people believe isn't the gospel. Sadly, the way the human, and maybe this is a beautiful thing with evolution, I don't know. The way the human mind works is it conflates things, right? It confuses things. It combines different component parts from different ideas into one. Now, sometimes if you're an engineer, you can invent something like an airplane as a result of that. But sometimes ideologies are invented out of that. If this woman, not the bus rider, because I think Mary's probably more closer to what Jesus would be looking for. It'd be literally what if God was one of us, just a stranger on a bus? Literally, there's a song where God is taking the bus, not a McLaren. Right? He's not getting to work in a McLaren 720, he's not doing that. Where you going, Jesus? Church. But the idea that to have it all down here is a better idea than what I just read in Acts, to where, hey, you're willing to contribute to others, to sacrifice everything you have so that others could be comfortable. Because that is a greater reward. You're not going to be uncomfortable because of that design in Acts takes care of you too. If you have more than you need, you're never going to have less than you need. You're going to have just what you need. And so will other people. And that has to have a value. And that's why, like, if I go to the grocery store at Thanksgiving time and they say, hey, they have these turkey dinners that they want to give to poor families, they're doing it for like $18 or something like that, or $20. I'll say, okay, I'll take 5 of them. And they're looking at me like, 5? I'm like, I was a kid where this stuff used to come to my house, my apartment that we lived in.
Yeah.
In the projects. So I feel very strongly, like last year, one of my coworkers was doing some work for me, and she goes, she looks at this receipt. She goes, what's this for? Why are you deducting this on your taxes? I said, I went to, there's an organization called Stuff the Truck where they give toys to kids. And I saw it. And I said, well, what are people not giving that you need? And I went in the store and I bought the stuff the guy gave me on a list. And then I went to the front counter and I said to the lady at the Walmart, I says, hey, I'm buying all this for Stuff the Truck. I'm not keeping any of it. Can you discount it? She was so happy. She says, yes, I can. And she discounted nearly everything in that buggy. Wow. And I walked out and I gave it to Stuff the Truck. Here you guys go. I had bicycles, helmets, and and the guy couldn't believe it. I'm like, look, man, I'm one of those people. A lot of the time I have more than I need. And I'm not shy about sharing it, because there are people who have needs. And I grew up being one of those people. So when I'm in a place where I can share, I do.
There just isn't enough of those people, right? This is like the Mr. Beast conversation. I just don't think society should be, we shouldn't have that need in the first place. And the government can bring about more effective change than individuals. And unfortunately, the other problem is the churches, because that's where most individual excess goes. Most people don't have enough to tithe 10% and give donations and stuff like that. Or if they're not tithing, they're gonna give their offering to the church. That's probably, if we looked, I bet you so many people, over 70% of their philanthropic efforts goes to their church. Which again,
that's interesting.
Goes
It'd be
to
interesting,
their church. Yeah. So I just wish we did more on a institutional level.
I'll keep that in mind.
No, it's not to blame. Obviously, we're always happy people are unselfish. I'm just saying, like, it's the scale isn't large enough for me.
But I don't know. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think the idea of getting people together who would love to volunteer, finding those people and giving them opportunities to help. Like the ACA does that ramp building project where they build ramps for people who need ramps to get into their home. The ACA, let's just say, I don't know what their numbers are. Let's just say they have 12 people who do this on a normal basis, on a monthly basis, right? If this was popularly known and widely advertised, I think they could triple that number. Easily triple that number.
Sure, but we have
then anybody with a need.
billionaires, right? Like the idea is to go after rich people, go after corrupt organizations like churches, take their money and redistribute it. Like it's just
you have to understand that the money the church has is redistributed wealth. It is this Acts 4 money. It just doesn't go out into the community.
Right.
It goes in Creflo Dollar's pocket, right?
Yeah.
It goes in Jesse Duplantis's pocket. Think of it. If let's just take Kenneth Copeland. He's worth $700 million. Let's say that's absolutely true. In places like, I don't know, the jungles of Central America, Africa, the Philippines, India, if you just said, I'm going to take this $700 million and dig fresh water wells for small villages. How many wells do you think you could dig with $700 million? I would argue you could fulfill every single known and unknown need on earth for fresh water wells with that money.
That's what I'm saying. Like
we
could solve this problem. Yeah.
Right. So again, if you need evidence that there's a God, this isn't something you could use as evidence. It's just not. Because God lets that go on. Meanwhile, these guys are trying to figure out which jet to spend $50+ million on. Really?
Exactly.
So God's but let me address the kingdom of heaven should be rich, lady. Do not lay upon yourselves treasures on earth. This is the Bible, not me. Matthew 6, Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 through 21. Where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay it up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Evidently, the thieves are right there in the church. They have a key for where your treasure is. There your heart will be also. Right? So if we think of that lady wanting to grasp onto the prosperity for the kingdom, it's not about that. It's not. This is going back to Acts.
It's just
we're doing it together. We're seeing to each other's needs.
That lady's
I don't think that's her game.
That lady's just a mark. It just shows you that religion just gets people to agree with clearly immoral behavior because, yeah. All right, go ahead.
Experiencing bumps and sudden stops. Her pastor is lounging comfortably in his private jet, gliding through the air like he's a swan on the lake. And this was when it came to me that Mary might be the product of the prosperity gospel. Imagine strongly yearning for something, like a car or even a cure for a sick loved one. We all have had such heartfelt wishes, right? And then we begin to look for a place that can promise these wishes. This place becomes the church. We often start looking at the church as this place of serenity. You know, everyone is offering their hearts and devotion, and the atmosphere is filled with a sense of unity. And then a pastor comes out of nowhere, demanding money to come out of thin air. Then the atmosphere changes.
My sister, I know you've been reading the Bible.
Is it for you to stand in front of a church and demand money to come to you?
But God says it's time for us to tell that money, you don't belong to the wicked, you belong to us. And I want you to get in the right place. Money coming to me now.
Who is this? Who is this minister?
I don't even know.
Put some money, put some anointing on this money. You put something up here. You put. Prosper.
Drop money at the altar just so you can walk on it. Is it to tell the church that your house?
You know what? Maybe Jesus.
Two-story house. What is that?
Maybe Jesus nailed himself to the cross, saying, "Just get me out of here."
Just give me.
I'm done, you guys.
These guys are insane.
I'm going back up to heaven.
I think this is it. I'm not familiar with this guy either.
My house is almost 25,000 square feet.
Oh my
You
goodness.
can get lost in it. I had to get some speakers in there so I can find my wife.
Or is it to believe God for a $65 million jet?
If I want to believe God for a $65 million plane, you cannot stop me. You cannot stop me from dreaming. They discover life on Mars. If you think a $65 million plane was too much, if they discover that there's life on Mars, they gonna need to hear the gospel, and I'm gonna have to believe God for $1 billion space shuttle because we got to preach the gospel.
Oh my goodness.
She would have sent the radio.
And this just
all right, pause it. Wait. So in this clip, this is so wonderful. You see both sides of the problem. You do. For those in the congregation that are chanting along with this, they're missing the point of what the Bible says. They're missing it. Hold on, let me hold one up. They're missing in case this is used by another YouTuber, they're missing the point of what the Bible says entirely.
Yeah.
Because it's about things. This is nothing to do with righteousness. This has nothing to do with proper conduct in your community. This has nothing to do with lifting other people up. This is utter selfishness. And the Bible goes on to say Satan is the god of this world. If that's true, Satan is the best manager of people in all of history. I'll keep some rich, I'll keep some poor, I'll raise some up, I'll bring some down. I'll be in a state of constant giving good and bad examples to people. I'll put leaders like this guy in front of them to make them want money. And because they want money, they will think less and less about helping their fellow human beings. And I'll even give some of them money to keep the other ones inspired.
I was just going to point out the Christianese cometh, like the way they talk. Stop talking. Like, it sounds so stupid. Money cometh to me now. What?
King James, man. King James.
Yeah, it's
I don't
gross.
think this is King James.
Who talks like that?
People used to.
These are the teachings of the prosperity gospel. A gospel often far from the truth, right? A gospel that tells you
they're all
that
far
if you
from
follow God, you can get everything you want. You know, that money you wanted, you can have
Pause
that
it.
sick
Pause
relative
it.
you wanted.
Pause it. Pause it. Pause it. Why do Christians think that way? Now, a lot of us here on the podcast, in our audience, are non-believers. And you probably got that way. A fair number of you probably got that way because you actually read the Bible. Does the Bible say that God will give you what you want? Does it? And Jay, I'm going to speak in some old-timey King James because you're supposed to pray ye believing that ye already have it.
Yeah, I think there's verses that some people use to support that.
Cured. And
sure.
The thing about this gospel is that
Mark 11:24. It's right there in the Bible. It's right there in the Bible. Let me read this in non-King Jamesy English so I can make you happy. NIV. I don't know why I just didn't pick that up. Mark 11:23-25. Truly I tell you, Jesus says, if anyone says to this mountain, go and throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt it in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins. There we go. That's straight out of Jesus's ass. He's saying it. You got to pray that when you pray, believe that you got it, and you got it. This minister that stands up in front of all those people and has them chanting is no different than what Jesus is saying here, other than he knows he's going to get richer and most of them won't. They just won't. Well, you got your paycheck, didn't you? That means the Lord kept you employed.
And now
So
you
you
can
can
give us
support the
10% of it.
Yeah, give us 10%.
He might
So we
need
can
to
make
stop
$4 million,
hustling.
you know,
He may want
this
a car,
month.
but if she wants that car, she needs to have faith and believe that, believe that she will get it. Give money and she'll get it. But as Mary is listening to these pastors, right, she'd be surprised to hear that their teachings are all flawed.
Hallelujah. Hey, God, your bills are paid.
First, their teaching invites you to look at God as some type of genie in a bottle. It invites you to look at God as Santa Claus, right? These charlatans have turned the gospel into a gospel of work, inviting you to look at God as this, Father Christmas that gives you money, also corrupting the real biblical idea or the concept of tithing, which is when you give money to support the church. And like you just saw, these preachers aren't just using these tithe money to support the church. Many of them are using it to support themselves, right? They use this money to support their carnal desires, right? And the sad thing about this is that their congregations never stop giving them money. They are filling their pockets to the brim. The business of the church. Upon tithing a church, people should know the logistics and the business aspect of the church. First, tithing is a real biblical aspect. As a Christian, 10% of my income is to be given to my local church. This is so that the lights could continue running and so that the rent could be paid and operations could continue running effective and smoothly. But when a church
Can you pause it? Can you pause it?
Tithe, this chunk of money is taxed.
Okay. So this has evolved, this idea of tithing within the Bible. Basically, you were supposed to bring 10% of your crops, 10% of your first fruits to the temple. So if you were a shepherd, you would bring 10% of your sheep, your goats. If you were a farmer, 10% of your grapes or 10% of your wine, if that was your end product, 10% of your olives, and so on and so on and so on. Bring all that to the temple. The temple could then either use or sell that stuff or give it to the poor, which was something they actually did, including the meat that was sacrificed. So they would distribute that. That kind of is following a little bit to some degree what the Acts verse is saying, right? The Acts chapter 4. Hey, we're giving to those who have need. It evolved over time into essentially turning the congregation into an ATM, where you need something and it comes directly from them. And even when there's a surplus, you keep on collecting instead of distributing the surplus, right? Instead of paying the light bills, electricity bills, the doctor bills, things like that. That's what it turns into. You have people in their 80s that go to church, but they come home and they eat cat food because it's what they can afford on their fixed income if they have that.
Yeah.
So over time, the idea weakened, but the money, the intake got better. Pretty sad stuff.
Tax-free. Say you work a legal job, right? Tax may be taken from your paycheck, but imagine a church receives $1 million in tithes. That $1 million is exempt from being ever taxed. The same laws apply for the UK, Canada, India, and the countries like South Africa where churches aren't taxed. Then the countries which tax their churches are mostly in Europe. Churches in Denmark, Austria, Finland, Sweden, Croatia, Iceland, Switzerland, Chile, Bolivia, and Ecuador are all subject to taxation. Then there's the churches in Argentina and Peru, for example, who are given money by their own states just to keep everything running. These churches in these countries are given money just so they can cover the salaries of their popes, their priests, and their bishops, and people that are all high church officials. And churches aren't taxed because they're considered non-profit organizations. This is the same reason why you see people, rich people, make their own non-profit organizations. Organizations like Bill Gates and Melinda Foundations, Kellogg's Foundations, even Mr. Beast Philanthropy, and Robert F. Smith, the man who paid off the entire debt of students at Morehouse College that one time going viral for, which I wish I was a part of them. And even though he helped many people, that money would be a big tax write-off for him, just so his taxes could be lower. Now that we've covered this, right, every envelope you see in this next chapter would all be untaxed. Kenneth Copeland's Money Room. In this preacher's mailroom, numerous envelopes are brimming with $20 bills, $100 bills, and even larger denominations. Inside these envelopes are stacks of cash,
money
right? As well as
room,
letters that
untraceable.
These envelopes are being sent to Kenneth Copeland by his church members, asking Kenneth to pray for them. But his church members may feel
pause it.
Doesn't even read.
I'm gonna get out my calculator again. All right, so I didn't know. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I cleared everything. The money room. Let's assume he has this jet, right? He had, I don't know if he still does, millions of followers. Let's assume that, I don't know, let's just say $75,000 a week came in cash. Not unthinkable. So 75,000
times 52.
Times 52. That's $3.9 million a year. Now, if it's in cash and you have when I go to, when I fly around the world doing what I do, when I go to different places, they always ask me, how much money did you bring with you? I'm constantly told you cannot carry more than $5,000 cash, or depending, you can't carry more than 10. So like if I have staff, people will get different money because there are things we need US dollars for. And if I'm going to a country where US dollars are hard to get, I have to bring them with me. So this sort of thing, you make $4 million a year. Now think about this. Let's just give them 20 years of having a plane, okay? So we're going to multiply that times, let's just make it 15. That's $58.5 million. If you have a private plane, you can put that money on your plane. And then you can fly to one of these nations where you can have a bank account that the US government doesn't know about. And you can put all that money in there.
Yep.
And pay no tax on it anyway. When you have your private plane, no one, you can't get suddenly searched. It's not going to happen. You're buddies with the ground crew. You're buddies with the officials in the next country that you go to. There's no way you take them out to steak, you wine them and dine them. They never had it so good. And they're buddies with someone who loves the Lord. So you literally could stock away tax-free billions of dollars if this is your enterprise with your buddies, and they bring the money to you. You get on your plane and you go.
Yeah,
and you're straight. Like, look, I'll just charge you 1%.
Yeah, I want to see if he goes more into the organizational side. But yeah, it's you got to think of them like drug dealers at this point. Let's roll the tape because we're only halfway through.
Letters. According to an employee,
how much of this mail and correspondence they see and or pray over? 0%.
In fact, these letters would be sent back to these naive church members to give this letter the look that it was personalized, that it was from a real person.
In fact, the ministry recently bought a new high-tech printer, which according to the manufacturer, gives Copeland a finished document that looks 100% personalized.
Amen. They think when they get that letter back that someone has actually prayed.
Is that misleading?
They don't understand that was actually just processed into a computer.
Do you think that is
very
misleading?
I worked there for 6 months.
Nathan Boutwell says he, not Copeland, read the prison ministry prayer requests.
There was no actual human contact with that letter besides my eyes, but that's okay. He gets 10,000 letters a week. But admit that. Don't imply that you read these personally when you don't.
Hallelujah. The former employees we spoke to also say their spirits sank after learning Kenneth and Gloria have little, if any, contact with their faithful followers.
That's the one time I saw the man was at the Christmas party.
I was in an elevator with Gloria once.
And they had little, if any, contact with their 500 employees.
At one prayer rally at a public park, some interviewers would decide to slip past Kenneth Copeland's security to ask him a very uncomfortable question. Kenneth would first smile, then this smile will quickly turn into a frown after being asked if he was the one actually reading these letters.
Do you personally pray over your prayer requests that you get? Do you personally pray over those? Do you ever see them?
Oh, yes.
You do? When do you see them, sir? When do you see your prayer requests?
Well, That is between me and my partners.
After these interviewers pressed down on Copeland some more, he'd later tell them that, in fact, it was a team that he had reading over these letters.
Do you ever see those prayer requests? Do you ever see them? Do you ever touch them? Do you ever read them?
Yes, I do.
But from what we just heard from the employee,
how much of this mail and correspondence they see and or pray over?
0%.
So who do we really believe here? I personally wouldn't believe a preacher that's dressing from his head to toe in luxury fashion, pastors in designer fashion.
It looks like this. See that go? See on them shoes? Get a shot of this, boys. Get close. Come on, man. Look, I paid a fortune for them things. Suck in there, man. See that go? Some of y'all got that in your teeth. Okay. Gold is very, very expensive.
As said in the Bible, Jesus Christ himself barely had any clothes. Heck, he barely had a place to sleep, right? But some pastors can't relate to this, right? There's some pastors blinging in designers from their head to toe. Here is Pastor Mike Todd in some $700 off-white sneaker boots. Here is Pastor Robert Madu in his $2,000 designer shoes. Here's Pastor Darius Daniels in some $900 Fendi sweaters. Here's Pastor Lusco rocking a $3,000 Saint Laurent jacket. Here's Pastor Chandler with a $3,000 shoe on his feet. And lastly, this is Pastor Toby with his entire outfit costing over $1 million. Which leads me to my next point. Pastor Toby, the man behind Salvation's Anointed Proclaimers Church.
So what this proves is that if you have millions of dollars at your disposal, it doesn't buy you good taste. I'm not the first person to point that out. I won't be the last. But yeah, it's silly. I mean, we honestly can't have this discussion without repeating ourselves that there's no need for this level of lavishness with these guys. I'm not.
Yeah, and it's just conspicuous consumption. The taste is the price.
Yeah, I've known a lot of millionaires, and I've met. Let's see, I don't know. I might have met 2 billionaires. I know for sure David Geffen is a billionaire when I met him. But I don't know if you saw the way David Geffen was dressed when I met him at Gabor Chupo's art gallery. You would just think he was a regular dude if you didn't know who he was.
Yeah,
just a regular dude. Nice shirt, jeans, nice shoes. Probably didn't cost $11,000 for all of that stuff. His car, I don't know what he was driving. I didn't pay any attention to that. We just talked. Anyway, but there's stuff like this that just blows my mind. And I have known people who sort of brought themselves up and became quite wealthy. And there's a certain level, I'll tell you what happens. I'm thinking of one particular friend. I owe him a phone call. He didn't know what to do with all his money. He didn't know what to buy. And so the fact that something cost, let's say he needed a new car. He could have got a Toyota for 35 grand and had it be loaded with everything he would ever want in a car, right? For 35 grand. But that wasn't a sign of success anymore, because if you are a secretary, you can have the same car.
You got to buy something more lavish,
right? There had to be something to distinguish him in his success. So his father had, oh my gosh, this Rolls Royce was a beautiful car. So his father had this beautiful. Father-in-law had this beautiful Rolls Royce, and I think he looked at his father-in-law, who brought him up, right? Who trained him and helped him to get where he is. I think he looked at that and said, well, these are markers of how well I've done in life that are evident for other people to see. Now, this is a church-going guy who, when last we spoke, he barely went to church anymore. He didn't need it. That's why he didn't go. He didn't need to pray to God. He became one, being able to get all he needed by writing a check, snapping his fingers, or swiping a card.
Yep.
you know.
Nation.
So
this pastor is one heck of a character, right? When you imagine this London-based pastor, the first picture to pop into your mind.
They even say more money than God, right?
Man, right? You see him posing in this $1,000 design fashion in his church members, and with his church members emulating his style, exuding fashion forwardness, pink, with all of them transforming the church into a literal fashion show. You see this pastor popping out of buildings into his Ferrari, him partying, spraying bills of cash on musicians. You also see him buying the women of his church $30,000 Birkin bags.
Logan's very nice. He bought me this terrific gift just completely out of the blue. Is that so? Totally unexpected. It's called a Birkin bag.
A Birkin bag? Oh my God. A Birkin bag?
You've heard of it?
Of course. That's a very nice purse.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't use it.
Oh no, a Birkin bag is meant to be used and seen.
I had no idea.
They even say this pastor is the pastor with more drip
Meant
than
to be
rappers.
seen and used.
Good morning, everyone. Short time. Sorry, man. I'm just joking. Church time. Jesus time. So I dressed simple this morning. This is an LV jacket, the only one in UK. I'm married. An LV top and LV sandals, trainers. This is interesting. I've never seen this chain in my life.
because I'm an atheist, let's go to the Bible. 1 Peter chapter 3. This is going to address how one should appear in church. Okay. Wives, in the same way, submit to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives too. When they see the purity and reverence of your lives, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Okay, we're not seeing that out of these ministers. What are they doing? This section is talking about the fine clothes, right?
Yeah.
Where's the righteousness? Where's the righteousness? It's nice that he can give his coworker a Birkin bag.
His mistress.
I gave whoever she is. I gave one of my teams last year. I gave them desk lamps that had magnifying glasses. Thanks, guys. But whatever. It's a big difference. It's not a Birkin bag. But clearly this isn't scriptural, right? There's better ways for him to have distributed that money to people who were in need. He could have bought a lot of people just a regular bag who might have actually had a need for one. Again, feeding people, fresh water,
And then again, you've got the entire congregation trying to emulate this, and so they're falling into bad habits too.
When I say if Jesus was real, he probably was a scammer. When I say that, like he was a con man, we could just focus on this one guy and the fact that his congregation is trying to copy him. That's all you need. That's all you need. And then you start telling this story about how this guy did all these miracles. You never have to show proof, right? The Bible never shows us proof. It's just a bunch of stories saying this or that happened, saying this or this thing would come into being. It would happen. Never has to show you proof. For other people by the billions to believe it's true. There's no accountability here. None. So this guy is going to do nothing but get richer. Nothing. Because he's got people believing, just like that money guy. He's got all those people believing. That's how you do it. That's what's going to bring it into your life.
Days ago, and it's called Cuba. It's called Cuba, and never won a chain in my life, but first time. This is a new AP. Christian Watches gave me this, and I don't know the name of these ones, but they are part of the accessory. Yeah, it gets better. I think I need the Nation family ring. Yeah, isn't it? And some grills.
Do you think these are the signs of the end times? Like, should we be worried here or should we not fear? But speaking of fear, wait till you hear about the fake miracle preachers. In Africa, a pastor claimed to raise a man from the dead.
He was in a mortuary. This is a brother. And this is a landlord. And you, who are you? Family members.
The mother of
Y'all can go back. We did an episode on this. You can check out.
Come here. This is the wife. Okay.
Don't get too close, everyone.
Jesus. Celebrate Jesus.
We glorify
Celebrate Jesus.
Jesus.
Hello, Elliot. Elliot.
Jesus.
Lift your hands. Lift your hands.
My good God.
Barabasa tabasa. Zete.
Man of is commanding life.
Rise up! Yes.
Come on!
This news circulated throughout all of Africa, right? People watched, people liked, people shared. They shared it everywhere, right?
They subscribed.
They would serve him some steak and some rice, you know, probably because he hadn't eaten in days.
The God of our lookout, he answers by fire.
But not only 3 days after this man was raised from the dead, the funeral parlors, the place where they bought the coffin, they would call the police department and say that this miracle was all fake. An advocate from these parlors said people from the church approached the parlors on 3 separate occasions to buy a coffin. Even the hearse
It was a parlor
man
trick?
who was driving the dead man to church said he heard the man kicking in the back. Imagine you were driving a dead man to his funeral and you hear kicking in the back. I would immediately rip my hair out, rip my clothes off, and dash into the woods. They must have been terrified. And what might even terrify you even more than this is the pastor who was sued for spraying roach spray on the face of his church members. Instead of him naming this stunt a death wish, this man would name the stunt a miracle, saying that it'll heal them of all their sickness. But what baffles me about this whole thing is
here's what they really think about you, folks. Here's what they really think about you.
There were the women that were bathing their women congregation trying to relieve their sexual desires, all in front of a church. Then there was the pastor who walked on the bodies of his church members, claiming that this would bless them.
We are blessed.
So, okay, can you pause it? I've said this before. Let me tell you what's happening. What I think is what's happening. I think these guys have reached such a level of success that there's something that clicks onto in their mind. 2 things. 1, I don't want to do this anymore. So what can I do to get fired? And 2, what can I get away with? How far can I go? Someone in the comment mentioned SA abuse. I think there's ministers that go there too. Well, let's see what I can get away with, because I have all this respect and admiration of my congregation. So let's push that to the limits of what's possible. Sadly, a lot of people lose out because of behavior like that. And this guy walking on his congregation members, this guy, the other guy spraying them with roach spray. It's all seeing what they can get away with, I think, at that point, knowing that for the most part, nobody's going to say anything other than some critics. But the faithful that show up every week and pay their money for the theater that they're seeing are going to keep doing it. You might get a few that walk away, but then there'll always be those people who said, wait, he walks on you and you're blessed, that's all I have to do. And for every one you lose, you get 2 more.
Yeah, this is why it's this should all be illegal. All of this should be illegal. I really do.
And how could we forget about the petrol pastor?
It's abuse.
This pastor was making his audience drink petrol, having them under the illusion that it blessed their pockets. And the worst of this, many of his church members lined up one after the other to come and drink petrol for a sort of miracle. And you could probably already tell. There's even more. There was one time that same pastor commanded his church to begin eating grass. And immediately you'd see all of the members of his church drop to the floor, with all of them beginning to
my
mulch.
goodness.
And the crazy part about this was that many of them did this, right? They all dropped to the floor, ate grass, digested it like they were some type of farm animal. Then you probably seen this clip. There was that one pastor who failed miserably after trying to defend how he spent his ministry funds.
There's a series of documents that total almost $50,000 to limo land. In 2013 and 14.
Limo land?
Yes.
Okay, what was that for?
That was to cut the Mercedes into a limo.
In June of 2013, there's over $6,000 worth of charges for the Disney Resort Hotel in Anaheim, California. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And did you go?
Yes, I was there.
It's honestly crazy, right? And just like those fake miracles, a miraculous man would wave his sweater and thousands would fall. This would be the miraculous story of Benny Hinn. This guy, Benny Hinn, was a miraculous worker.
Cancer! All the pain is gone in his chest!
See, no. How is this not illegal? That song got slapped though.
Pick it up! What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? Lucas! Holy, holy!
Doing these miracles at World Healing Center's church, it looked like Benny truly had some power in his hands.
Okay, so let me. I'm holding my hand up not because I feel the power, but because I want to break in. All right. So the First Amendment of the United States Constitution says this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Okay. So basically, and by the way, it doesn't say the states can't do this. It says Congress can't do this. Just a thought, as Bo in the fifth column would say. It's just a thought. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion. So do they mean an establishment as saying we're going to create a religion? Do they mean an establishment as an existing religion? Do they mean establishment as the building or the business of a religion?
I think we utterly overthink this. We overthink this every single time. It's really not that interesting. They came from a country where there was officially a church.
Church of England.
They're trying to say the government cannot be officially establishing a religion of the government. It does not say any church should be churches should be able to get away with fraud and scams.
This is the free exercise of religion. What we're seeing with Benny Hinn and this crowd.
I think this is putting. I think we've done this historically to excuse religion, and I don't think we should do it. And I definitely don't think we should do it as atheists. They're just saying that people can have whatever religion they want, and the government can't establish them. That's the free exercise. It does not mean that exploiting people through charlatanry should be legal. Like this is just The way we practice religion is immoral, and I don't think it should, I just don't think it's right to put it on the founding fathers. Also, the way we practice religion is wrong. So even if the First Amendment did say that, I don't care. I'm like, I don't care about the Constitution. It's not a sacred document. It should be amended. It should be changed. The founding fathers are not, I don't even like calling them that, because it's religious terminology, right? We call them that as to elevate them and pretend that they have some sort of supernatural wisdom, hundreds of years ago that should apply to us today. I just think this stuff is clearly immoral. It's clearly abusive. Either people are crazy, they're insane, or they're being exploited, in which case this is coercion. And I just think we make excuses for it. Yeah, I don't know. It just bugs me. But yeah, I mean, that's because that's the conversation, right? We take those words and then we can't do anything with that, right? Because we're always, well, it doesn't mean this and doesn't mean that and doesn't mean this and it's like, I think it's pretty clear what it means. And I just think that the religious sort of fervor in our country wants to shield itself behind the Constitution, and we wouldn't let any other organization do that. But
I want to point out something Carrie Ann says, and forgive me for not being more addressing more things said in the chat today. Accountability laws can be written within the rights of religious freedom. That is the absolute truth. And we can say accountability laws can be written within the space of free speech, and they have, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, and it's like we don't allow hate speech. We don't allow hate speech, and we don't allow fraud. If somebody came to my door and sold me a vacuum that didn't get things out of my rug, and they went all around the neighborhood promising that they had the best vacuum, and they knew that vacuum didn't pick up dust, we'd put them in jail and hold them financially liable for all of the crimes that they had committed. Religion it's just a shield people can hide behind, and then they can get away with anything.
But Pocket Locker, here's the thing. Let's take your example, okay? It's a fine example. Because religions, the various religions of the world, all make claims, right? But their claims are not demonstratable. I can go to Mark chapter 16, right? Go to the end of the Mark chapter, the Gospel of Mark, and show you that evidently there is almost no Christians walking the earth today, based on something Jesus says about those who follow him, his believers, will be able to lay hands on people and heal them. They can drink deadly poison and not get, harmed by it and such. I can interview Christian after Christian and find none of them had this ability. Not one. Or maybe there's one or two, which would be remarkable. But that's going over a sample of nearly 2 billion people.
And maybe Donald Trump won the 2020 election.
He lost twice. He lost the Electoral College. I mean, he won. Lost twice.
But that's just what some evidence suggests, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. We can play this game. If we play this game with religion, we could play with it. There's the fact that none of their claims are demonstrable.
Religion is given a pass. Religion is given a pass.
And I'm saying it shouldn't be.
Okay, well, from my perspective, it's theater, right? To some degree, it's cosplay.
But we know
it's Dungeons and Dragons, literally has dragons.
Yeah, sure, but we wouldn't allow Dungeons and Dragons to exploit people like this. I just think it's clearly victimization. Also, they don't know that. They don't, right? They don't think they're cosplaying. They don't think that they're at the Dungeons and Dragon convention for the weekend. They believe Jesus is that he's up there telling them, I'm gonna heal cancer to the point that you can't feel it. Like, I just think that is real exploitation of people. It's real. There are real victims here. Yeah. All right, let's try to.
I agree. This. So, but look, I think that the intelligent thing to say is Can you offer me a guarantee of anything that's useful other than belief itself? Is there a real guarantee? Can you guarantee me change? And if you can do that for me, it should be applicable to everyone else on the planet if they did the same thing. It doesn't work that way though. It's not that strong. It's not true. So go ahead.
Right.
He could not speak correctly. He stuttered for 13 years. Bring him up.
I mean, if you were watching Benny at the time when he was on TV, it looked like WWE, but just in church. Benny would perform all sorts of miracles. He'd wave his sweater one time, and all of his church would fall to the ground.
Take it!
Let the bodies hit the floor.
Take it!
But these miracles were also fake. In fact, Benny Hinn's closest circle, his nephew, came out and exposed them. The story of Gustick Gibbon.
You know what the track record shows? That men like my uncle, they are devouring people.
That was Gustick Gibbon. He was in Benny's immediate circle, and he recalls life with his rich uncle, right? He recalls how they lived with church money. Life was as lavish as anyone would imagine. Every car we ever drove was nothing short of luxury. We drove Mercedes, Benzes, Bentleys, Maseratis, and BMWs. At one point, we had a Ferrari F430 from a business deal with Ministry Associates. I'll never forget driving it with my friends around Orange County while my dad was away on a trip. It was like those movies in which the spoiled rich kids do whatever they want because their parents are powerful. But problem was that I was the son of a preacher, and our lives were an embarrassment to the gospel. Every hotel suite was prime minister, presidential, or royal. We flew on private Gulfstream jets that were paid for by ministry's donations, lived in multiple million-dollar homes, ate at the best restaurants, and went on shopping sprees to the finest stores around.
Yeah, the responsibility, if I'm speaking just frankly, is to look really good, look really blessed, sell the narrative, make all the money, and say, look at my life. If you give to this, if you follow it, if you obey it, and if you do what I say, God will do it for you too.
If God is speaking to you to sow $1,000 seeds tonight.
So how did Gustick Gibbon turn from his ways, right? What happened? The senior pastor of the church gave me a John MacArthur commentary, and in the midst of my study, I broke down in tears, repenting of my sin and committing to preach the true gospel.
And I remember it weighing on my conscience, and I'm not saying that I'm no less a sinner than anyone else. Believe me, I'm not at all.
I'm truly happy for Gustick that he changed his life around. But for the guys that don't, yikes, hell is really hot. The conclusion, shout out to the pastors that's actually preaching the true gospel, but these pastors are pastors who appear like sheep but are really wolves. You know, remember, Jesus never chased wealth on earth. Like I said earlier, he didn't even have a place to sleep, right? And there were even times where, homeless, that dude, he was homeless at times, right? His miracles too, they were actually real, right? And he worried about the words of his father only. And, money.
His miracles, right? This guy's a Christian.
Take your last breath. Was it really all that important? Money stops mattering. This is why Solomon's life lesson in the Bible is one of my favorites. He lived as a king and ruled Israel for years. He was a very, very wealthy man. So wealthy that in today's time, his wealth is still estimated to be $2.1 trillion, right? That's like 10 times of Elon's wealth, I think. In the book he wrote called Ecclesiastes, right? He talks about the depressing and sad.
He had a lot of child support, that guy.
Money and how money does not truly matter. And what mattered was following God. Money didn't contribute to his happiness, and it got him the nice things he wanted. And even those nice things couldn't make him happy, So he became sad, depressed, and, he died depressed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn post notifications on. It's been Tunde, and I'm out.
All right, gang. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all
sow a seed.
And share. Do all this.
You can show a seed for hot program, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. That's right. Man, like I said, this is gonna make you feel broke as a joke. I mean, the opulence is like no other. I mean, these guys are all somewhere between pro athlete and sovereign of a small country,
African warlord, oil billionaire, Russian gas billionaire. Yeah.
And honestly, I really do. I don't look. I y'all know. I think people need to be shamed out of religion. It's not because I think it's not that I think that they individually deserve scorn. It's that they're dependent, they're addicted to a social feedback loop that would that we need to break that feedback loop. Like the reason we can't do this with drugs is because they keep getting you high, right? Like one way to quit drugs. No, but seriously, one way to quit drugs be if they stop working. If they stop working, right? And religion is a drug, and it's one of those drugs we can actually break that feedback loop because people aren't actually going to go to heaven. They're not actually going to live forever. What they do actually get though is favor and esteem and social benefits for being part of a cult. And for most people, we wouldn't give them that. We wouldn't esteem somebody for being part of QAnon or being one of the hangers on of Heaven's Gate or something like that. And we certainly not if the cult was known for prejudice, like the KKK or something like that. So then what I think happens is the people that are sort of lower down the food chain, they become the suckers. So there's the con artist at the top and the suckers at the bottom. So you have people who are quote unquote genuine Christians, but they're just doing the grunt work and the leg work for the people at the top. Even these small churches, like my grandfather, he doesn't run a big church, but he's still beholden to the faith. He's still promoting this cause. He's still repping Team Jesus. And the fact that he's seen as a genuine man of God because he's not rich, but he does all the sacrificial stuff. To me, it's just like doing PR for a bad organization and then like not even benefiting from it. It's like, it's tough because I know that there's a lot of people who we think of as like, well, they're genuine believers and they're just going along with it. They're just okay, but then they're suckers. They're you should be concerned about them. They're the people being they're not taking my money, right? I'm not giving 10% of my income to the church, and if I get sick, I'm not going to the church for help.
I can see the pocket locker meme now. Christianity, there's one born again every minute.
Yeah,
there's one sucker born again every minute.
Yeah, exactly. Sucker born again every minute. I love that.
I'll make you one after the show. I just gotta grab a screenshot.
That's a good one.
Well, I do think it's unfortunate that there are people who I guess you and we obviously disagree on our perspectives about religion. I think.
Hang on, we can't hear you. I don't know, you got muted. Why did you get muted out of nowhere? It's so weird. Maybe refresh it. Maybe come back. Let's see what happened. Yikes. All right, we'll give him a minute to come back. If not, we'll wrap up. But yeah, I like. We're never gonna do anything to hold these churches accountable. Go ahead, my one black friend.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Hooray! All right. So I think, as I was saying, we disagree on whether or not religion should still be a thing. I think it is useful. It can be useful, as the saying goes. It is useful. to some. For those people who need Jesus or whatever they got, Buddha, to get off drugs, to stop beating their spouse, to be good parents to their children, where religion calls them to be a better, improved version of themselves. I think religion is absolutely wonderful. But what we're seeing here in this example from that video is the rampant abuse that takes place and hurts, whether they know it or not, the lion's share of the people caught up within a religion, where they're being abused by the people at the top. And there's a double standard, obviously, that's there. We should be able to see, like what's said in Acts 4, where the benefits, the prosperity is shared amongst the members so that everyone has what they need, so that no one goes without need. And maybe that can be a church too, where like, look, this is a church. Don't join our church if you don't have a need or you can't fulfill one, because we want you to give enough that the people who can't pay their light bills, who need a new wheelchair, who need a ramp built in the atheist community of Austin, isn't in their town. We want to meet those needs. Like, that's the idea. Like, if you're not into it, don't come. But again, there are those people who would speak out. It's like, hey, isn't that socialism, where you're taking money from the people who have it and giving it to other people who don't have as much? Or what was it? From each according to their ability to those according to their need.
Yeah,
something like that. That's what they're saying in Acts. They're giving it to who needs it. But even the people who have the most money don't have those needs for the things that money can do for them that they can't fulfill already.
Yeah.
So some of the ideas that are there, I can see a certain beauty to them. I practice that to some degree myself. I'm not giving away everything I have, but I do give away things I have. I help people when I can, whether it's my time, my knowledge, what have you. I share, and I'm happy to do so. So there are always going to be people like that. I'm not special. There are always going to be people like that, but there are always going to be people like the ones we've seen in these videos, where they are caught up in taking advantage of their congregation. Where the people, I don't know how much calling out there is within the religious community, right? Just like the essay stuff that we see. Do we really see anybody calling these one religious organization calling out another for those problems? Are they really doing it? Or is it the secret that they all have? And like, well, look, you're going to look at us if we look at you. So let's just look away from each other.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Hot Program. Thank you all so much for tuning in. There are links in the description for my One Black Friends channel and my channel as well. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channels, and as always, be good to yourselves and each other. I don't know where my One Black Friend went. Okay. Here he goes. Hey. But yeah, I was just reminding people there are links in the description. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Be good to yourselves
and each other.
All right, we'll see you next time.